So tonight we are going to explore the question how the Great Wisconsin Birdathon can be incorporated into your instruction for meaningful place-based learning. And we are so excited to have three people here to share with us what the Birdathon is and how we can get involved and bring it into our classrooms. So we have Sarah Cameron with us, Caitlin and Peter Dargit's with us. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to learn from you.
I just want to say thank you everyone for being here this afternoon, evening. A quick introduction to myself. My name is Sarah Cameron. I am the Great Wisconsin Birdathon coordinator with the Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin. This is my second year of coordinating the Birdathon. This is kind of like my fun part-time side job. So I do this part-time, and Caitlin will actually be taking over the Birdathon next year. So it's been really great to have her. We're tag teaming the Birdathon this year, and I'll let her introduce herself quick too.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm really excited to be here with you all tonight. Like Sarah mentioned, I am kind of learning the ropes of the Birdathon this year, but I was lucky enough to be able to participate in it last year as a participant, and it was such a wonderful experience, and I'm excited to share more about that with you today. I also work at the Natural Resources Foundation as the outreach coordinator. I just started there in February, and working on the Birdathon is one part of my job, but I also help support the Wayfarers program and our communications department. But yeah, we're really thrilled to share how the Birdathon can make an impact in your classroom and how it can get students outside looking at the world around them with new eyes and be a great learning experience for everyone involved.
Yeah, and we also have Peter here. I didn't have his name on this first slide, but he'll be jumping in at the end too to actually talk about his experience. This will be his third Birdathon this year. So it's really great to have his kindergarten classroom involved in the Birdathon as well. But I'll first get started with, in case anyone here has never heard of a Birdathon before, a Birdathon is a walkathon style fundraiser for bird conservation. And it's not just here in Wisconsin. Birdathons happen across the country, across the globe every single year. They're just a really powerful tool to get people, as Caitlin mentioned, just like outside, excited about birds, and then also the bonus of raising money for conservation as well. And they differ from a walkathon because instead of logging miles, you're logging bird sightings and trying to see how many birds you can find. So as I mentioned, Birdathons happen across the country each year, but here in Wisconsin, we have the Great Wisconsin Birdathon, and that's where Caitlin and I come in here. So the Great Wisconsin Birdathon is organized by the Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin. It is an annual event happening each spring. We had a bit of a longer Birdathon last year with COVID, but traditionally they last from April 15th to June 15th. And although we're based in Madison, the Birdathon is for everyone in Wisconsin. So we have teams participating all across the state. We even have some really, some folks outside of the state that just love Wisconsin birds so much that they participate from afar as well. And the Birdathon really is for everyone. All skill levels are welcome to join. We have beginner birders, we have expert birders, and we have everything in between as well. And reflecting back on last year's Birdathon, we had 65 teams participate across the state. It was about 250 folks involved, and that included 2 classrooms. It would have been a bigger number, but the timing of the Birdathon really lined up with kind of the beginning of COVID, and I'm sure I don't need to tell this group that teachers have enough on their plate, so it ended up not being the most ideal year for that, but really am thankful to have those 2 classrooms join. Like I said, Peter's going to talk to us about his experience with his kindergarten crew, and then we also had a 4th grade classroom participate as well. And throughout the Birdathon, we were able to raise over $104,000 for priority conservation projects. And those will go into more detail on our website if you want to check that out. I'll kind of skim over it right now, but some really incredible conservation projects for birds that we were able to support through the Birdathon. And like I said, with the Birdathon, we're logging bird sightings, and our teams recorded 237 species across Wisconsin last spring. So that was a really exciting number to see as well. And so first, I'll quick just talk about what kind of like a traditional birdathon looks like. And then Caitlin will take over and talk about the different adaptations for classrooms. And so typically, this is what kind of, our typical birdathon looks like. So we have folks form a team, come up with a really witty team name, and then register their team online at wibirdathon.org. And we can share that link out after this as well, as well as with a blog that Caitlin put together, also kind of summarizing a lot of the resources we'll talk about today. But that's the first step, is forming your team of birders. It can even be a team of one, it can be a classroom, it can be a school. There's really no size capacity there. And then the next step is to pick a day to participate. And so traditionally, a birdathon team would just pick one single day to go out and go birding. And this is that concept of a big day where you try to find as many birds as possible in 24 hours. But again, with classrooms, we have a lot of flexibility and adaptations for not sticking to that one day rule. And Caitlin will talk about that. The next step is to fundraise or collect pledges. When you register your team, you have the chance to customize your team page, and you can collect donations through the team page, either by check or by card. And really for classrooms, the emphasis is not on the fundraising component. We really just want to get folks outside and enjoying this last part, which is to go birding. And past years, the emphasis wasn't really on citizen science or community science, but that's been something that we've really tried to promote in recent years as well. And so there's a really great platform called eBird. You can have a mobile app or go on their website, and you can basically, it's great for the teams. You can keep track of the birds you're seeing, but then it has also the added benefit of sharing that data with research scientists. And so it's just an additional way to have a really awesome impact through the birdathon. And so that's what kind of a traditional birdathon planning looks like. And I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin, who will talk about opportunities for classrooms and how that might look a little different from a traditional birdathon.
Thanks, Sarah. Like Sarah mentioned, we really want to make it clear that classroom birdathons don't necessarily have to follow all of those steps of a traditional birdathon. The birdathon has some guidelines, but they're all just really guidelines and they're not hard rules. So there's a lot of ways that you can take the birdathon and you can make it your own. You can tailor it to your classroom, to your students' needs and interests, and that flexibility is there from every step of the process. So on this slide, we've kind of put together some things that we think are perhaps some common barriers that might make the birdathon seem a little intimidating or a little out of reach for your classroom. And I'm going to talk about why it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is that not every teacher feels like they might know a lot about birds or that they are capable of being a birder. And I'm going to put birder in like quotation marks. We think that the birdathon is for everyone, regardless of skill level, regardless if you even feel comfortable identifying bird species. The whole point of the birdathon is to get people outside and thinking about all of the wildlife that we share a world with here in Wisconsin. And birds are such a kind of very close and easy access kind of like way to enter into that world. They're around us all of the time, but taking time out of our day to like actually focus on them and to think about how we're connected to them and how they need our help. The birdathon gives us an opportunity to do that. So even if you don't feel like you're an expert birder or familiar with birds at all, there are some really wonderful resources that can help prepare you to kind of take that step with your classroom, because this can be a learning opportunity for you and for your students. And I think it's a great thing for students to see that not everyone knows everything right off the bat, and you can learn together. We're going to share a blog post that I put together that includes a bunch of links to different resources, but I wanted to highlight a couple that are on the slide here. First is this bird guide for kids that Madison Audubon put together. This is basically, it's tailor-made for students, and it includes only Wisconsin species that they're likely to see at home or in their school playgrounds, or perhaps like at a local park. It doesn't give them an overwhelming number of birds, but it does give them species that they're likely to find right at home. So I'm just going to hold this up so you can see a little bit of what it looks like inside. There are photos, there's a size description, it has information on nests, on what birds eat. There's fun facts about each bird, as well as a description of what they look like. And it's designed for students to be simple, but informative and educational. And it also has a handy checklist in the back so they can keep track of all the things that they're finding. So this guide is available for free online in a PDF form, but you can purchase it for like $3 on the Madison Audubon website. And there's a link to that in that blog post. I also wanted to mention the Audubon Adventures website that's hosted by National Audubon. They have this absolutely phenomenal teachers lounge that has links to basically lesson plans that you can tailor to your classroom that are already designed to meet educational standards. They have everything's broken down by grade level. They have pre-made materials that you can provide for your students, quizzes, activities. It is really a goldmine of resources for anyone that's feeling like, I don't know where to start with bird-themed lessons. They have guides for beginning birders. They have videos you can watch together as a class to guide you through what birding can look like for your classroom. And so there's a link to that in the blog as well. And I encourage you to check that out as perhaps like your first destination if you're looking for a hub of resource materials. That's a really good place to start. Beyond learning about birds yourself and along with your students, there's the aspect of time commitment. Asking students to go birding for a whole day seems a little like perhaps a little bit too much to take on if you want to ease them into the world of birds. The birdathon can be something that maybe you set aside an hour, maybe a half an hour, maybe you're going to take a morning, maybe you take it bit by bit with like small focused sessions where you're outside birding for like 10 or 15 minutes at different points throughout a week. You can adapt the birdathon to fit whatever time scale you're interested in. If you don't have time for incorporating a bunch of lessons, but you want to take maybe a morning and spend it outside with your students working on place-based kind of activities, the birdathon is something that you can easily incorporate that into. But if you want to develop a month-long curriculum where you're looking at birds throughout that month, the birdathon also works for that too. So there's a lot of ways that you can adapt the time frame to basically meet whatever needs your classroom has. Sarah also mentioned that the birdathon is a fundraiser, and at its heart, it really is. All of the funds that we raise go to the Bird Protection Fund, but we have a lot of teams that are out doing fundraising for us, and we don't think classrooms need to keep that as a focus. If your classroom isn't capable of fundraising, that is a-okay. We actually would rather that you use it as an opportunity to get students excited about birds and to get them to kind of turn their attention to the world that's like right next to them, to get them outside, to get them asking questions and being curious about what conservation means. Those are the things that we want students to take away from the birdathon. It's not about the fundraising for classrooms. It's more about getting students to have perhaps that spark moment where they see something that's exciting and thrilling, and it sparks a passion, because birding does that for a lot of people. It opens up a world where they start to see things differently, and the classroom is a really great place to make that happen. The other barrier, which I think is a huge barrier for a lot of classrooms, is that not everyone has binoculars, and binoculars are expensive. So even if your classroom doesn't have binoculars and doesn't have the means to apply for a grant to get some, going outside with your eyes and ears works just as well. It's not like birds suddenly appear just only when you're looking at them with binoculars. You can get outdoors and you can do plenty of place-based activities where you're outside focusing on the sights and sounds that you hear around you, and still being able to identify common birds that you're seeing. I think that's one of the really nice things about the Bird Guide for Kids, is that it gives students information and ID things that they can focus on without necessarily having to have a super up close look at a bird. So there's still ways that your classroom can engage with birds and be finding birds, whether it's on the playground, whether you're taking a little field trip to a nearby park and seeing what you can spot moving in the trees. Even if you can't identify birds, that's just as fine too, because it's really about turning our senses to all of the life that exists out in the world that we share with birds. It's not necessarily about IDing each and every species we find. Sparking curiosity and asking more questions about birds is great. So even if students can't necessarily pick out what a bird is, like the class can investigate that together perhaps later in the day and do some research and see what kind of conclusion they can come to. So even an unidentified bird can become a learning opportunity. Yeah, Sarah, do you want to go ahead and progress to the next slide? So we really do encourage you to think about the Birdathon as a place-based learning activity where your students can connect with nature. Getting outside is something that we know kids need to do more often, and it really leads to this world of wonder that can open up for them, that gets them thinking about their connection to nature, about what conservation means and how they can play a part and make a difference in the world. It can introduce them to a new hobby. For a lot of students, that aspect of wanting to ID something, maybe could be something that sparks a passion for birding that they want to take on more seriously. And it's also a way for them to engage in citizen science. eBird, if you choose to incorporate eBird into your Birdathon adventures, is basically a citizen science platform where birders all across the world, whether they're classrooms, whether they are just individuals, whether they're like community scientists, they report their bird observations, and then scientists and researchers all across the world have access to those reports and to that data so they can study how birds are responding to climate change, how bird populations are changing or expanding, how birds' migration patterns are differing. So reporting your findings on eBird can be a really interesting tie to supporting larger bird conservation efforts as well. And talking about the Birdathon and what specifically what the Great Wisconsin Birdathon supports in terms of the high priority bird conservation projects that receive funding from the Birdathon is a really interesting way to have a meaningful conversation about the impact of what conservation can do. We have a bunch of different projects that receive funding from the Birdathon that go towards protecting piping plovers and whooping cranes and Kirtland's warblers, species that are here in Wisconsin that need our help. And they're really beautiful, wonderful birds that I think students get excited about pretty easily, and having conversations about why they're struggling and why they need people to be working towards their conservation is another kind of interesting opportunity to create those conversations. Sarah, if you can go to head to the next slide. So the next steps are really, if the Birdathon is something that you're interested in bringing to your classroom, you can go ahead and register a team. You do not have to have each and every student register for the Birdathon. It's basically you as a teacher would create the team. If you have other teachers in your school that are interested in participating as a school, you could have a team for your school with teachers joining the team. There's an email address and such that's required for joining, so it's not something that you need students to worry about at all. And we do have more resources on the Birdathon website about what a more traditional Birdathon looks like. If you do want some more detailed resources and links to some educational things that you can incorporate into your classroom, we have a link here for a blog that I recently wrote about bringing the Birdathon into your classroom that gives you some more kind of concrete steps as to how you can make that happen. But once you kind of look at those things and think about whether or not you want to make the Birdathon part of your school year this spring, then it's basically just time to get outside and look at birds. So I'll let Sarah talk a little bit about some grant opportunities for classrooms that are interested in looking at maybe getting binoculars further down the line.
Thanks, Caitlin. So I wanted to quick plug another opportunity with the Natural Resources Foundation, and also plug this really cute drawing of a cardinal that one of the Birdathon students made last year. That was like one of the highlights, was all their like handwritten thank you cards and everything. But plugging some opportunities for grants through the Natural Resources Foundation. They do have two like specific grant programs that are really well tailored to a classroom. And so again, this is just kind of like a side opportunity or an optional opportunity if you are looking for grants for your classroom. The Natural Resources Foundation has the Go Outside Fund. And that one, there's actually 4 different deadlines throughout the year. And the one coming up soon is going to be June 30th. And I just put just some of the like basic requirements or objectives for those grants on this slide. And then the other one we have is the Teachers Outdoor Fund. This one also requires a 1-to-1 match, and it only has 1 deadline per year. So this one has passed this year, I believe. Yeah, I think it was like in April this year. But it will be available next year. And I put a link at the bottom here again. Sorry, there's a lot of links that we're happy to share out, but there's a lot more information on the website. I know previous years, teachers have used this to provide binoculars for their classrooms or other things that can help with place-based learning. So we can share that out, and you are more than welcome to check those out and see if any feel like a good fit for your classroom. So just another way to get involved and another opportunity for education through the Natural Resources Foundation. And with that, I am going to hand things over to Peter.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you very much to Field Adventures and for Sarah and Caitlin for allowing me this opportunity. Hopefully you guys can hear me all well, and hopefully I'm not too distracted, but it is absolutely pouring outside right now. Loud claps of thunder, and I'm getting phone messages that we're under a tornado watch. So if you see me running with the laptop into the basement, you know what's going on. But again, thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity. I'd love to give you just a little short kind of look at what we do, because if you can do a birdathon with 5-year-olds, you can do it with pretty much anybody. Again, I am a nature kindergarten teacher at a public school in Sussex, Wisconsin. Created a nature kindergarten program around 7 years ago, and designed and built a trail and an unused parcel of kind of oak savanna, old prairie behind our school that's now become a school-wide collaboration with our nature center, a district-wide family nature club, and my kids go out there multiple hours every day, even when it rains like this. Well, maybe not quite this bad, but we go out in all elements and really enjoy it. And we really are excited about the birdathon season. In fact, earlier today we had our first birdathon practice, but we've been talking about birds and birding in general basically since the beginning of the calendar year. And we use the kids' interest obviously as an emergent-based program to really let the kids guide, but I've been doing birds now for a number of years, even before I knew about the birdathon, and kids are just very intrigued by birds. It's something that they connect with. It's something that they see. It's something that they get excited about, that they can connect to outside the classroom walls. So it makes really great sense to use it in the classroom. And we do all sorts of activities involving our lovely feathered friends. And on the screen, you can see our essential question that we focus on during our birding unit, although it really extends throughout the rest of the year, is how does learning about birds help us better understand the world around us? And it's a really cool and easy way for kids to really dig deeper into things, more than just the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. Next slide, please. So here are just a short sampling of some of the things that we do before we get ready for the birdathon. We use all sorts of artifacts just to get kids base knowledge about what they know about birds, what they think they know about birds. One of my favorite things they do at the beginning, at the end for an assessment is I give the kids a blank sheet of paper at the beginning. I say, draw me, write me, do anything you want. When you think of the word bird, what comes to mind, and they might draw a picture of a chicken, they might draw a picture of a penguin, they might draw a nest, they might try to spell out words. We do that same thing at the end of the unit, and let's just say kids need multiple sheets. They need more paper than they did the first time, and it's really fun to see all the things that they expand. We use picture books all the time. There are just a plethora of picture books that talk about all sorts of things birds. We sometimes zone in on a specific bird behavior or a physical characteristic or the life cycle. We learn about that, do some activities with that, focus on that for a day or two, and then we move on to something else. But they all do connect with each other. And it seems like lately, maybe it's just my eyes have turned to it more, but I found a lot more bird books that talk about actually, you know, counting, identifying birds, and doing birdathon type stuff. Field Adventures just had one of their storytime chats a few weeks ago about the book Bird Count, which really connected to kind of the birdathon. And there's a couple of other ones out there that have really been fun to get into and get the kids ready for it. But we do all sorts of experiments where we, you know, become birds and we act like birds. And one of the favorite ones that down here you can see on the bottom is I have a plate full of bird food, and it's, you know, fish, so goldfish crackers and worms, gummy worms, and nuts. We have some peanuts if we don't have allergy. We have some different sunflower seeds for seeds, different things that different kinds of birds would eat. And they use different style beaks to try to figure out what beak would eat what best food. So you can see that we have a spoon, tweezers, straw, little eyedroppers, and, you know, some kids, when they struggle or get a little frustrated that they can't use those, they'll just dig their face right into the plate. That happens every year, and it's perfectly acceptable. But it's a great way to for kids to get involved in the things we do. They learn about nests. We investigate real live nests in our classroom or on our trail that we find, and then they go out to our outdoor classroom and build a kindergarten size nest where they are the baby bird and they jump in their own nest. So we focus on a different bird a day, usually a bird that they would recognize either in our outdoor classroom or in their neighborhood. We listen to its call. We really analyze some of the physical characteristics. We'll watch videos, very short videos on our smart board about them. We'll listen to the songs. And we also do live bird cams. Right now, we're really digging the bird or the eagle cams and watching some of our eagle friends have their brand new eaglets and really getting excited, especially when, you know, when they bring in a fish or they bring in a squirrel. The kids are, the first time they see it, they get a little grossed out, but now they're like super excited, like, oh, what are they going to catch today? Those babies need to eat. So it's really fun to kind of see how their excitement grows as they get more experienced with the birds. Next slide, please. Like I said, we like to do all sorts of things while in birds, and we find ways to connect it to all elements of the curriculum. The kids are doing nature journaling. We're doing math measurement, whether we're measuring wingspan and comparing it to real live birds that we might see. We're doing testing with our eyes, like this picture that you might see of the kids just kind of sitting. That might not look like a birding picture, but we talk about how different birds can see tiny things from a long distance, and how some birds have, you know, night vision and things like that. Well, on the wall in front of them is a piece of paper with a sight word. Of course, it's written in regular font, but they can't see it. And we talk about, well, if you were a bird, not only could you see this, you could see this very clearly. And that's how you can figure out what food they can eat and how they can be successful in some of those interesting environments that they live in. We dig through artifacts, whether it's skeletons, whether it's feathers, whether it's nest, whether it's, you know, the bird. I don't know if you can hear this one, but I've got a whole collection of these bad boys. And I wish I could figure out how to dig into them and change the battery, because some of them are officially out of battery. But we dig into owl pellets, and that's really fun for kids to do, to try to figure out what the owl ate, and then putting the bones back together. They love that it's owl barf. I mean, that's just, for them, that's just the most exciting thing. They get to tell their family that they dug through barf, and they love it. But we do things also on our trail. We'll make bird feeders for the birds. We plant prairie native plants to attract insects, which then, of course, can be a great source for a bird. So it's a lot of stewardship and engagement in the future of birds as well. Next slide, please. Of course, this is about the birdathon, and I'm not here to talk about a curriculum about birds, although I could talk a lot more about it. The birdathon is really the element that has been just so exciting to watch the kids get out there. today was our first practice round. I designed an identification sheet, which basically one side has pictures of the more common birds that we're more likely to see. And on the other side, it's just basically a chart where they tally what they see and what they hear in 2 different columns, with also a little area of what date it is, what time of day it is, and what the weather's like, and then how long we go out there. And they're 5. So the first time we did it, practice today, we did it for literally 1 minute. Just 1 minute of silence, all right? We talked about kids, you use your listening eyes, or your listening ears, and your looking eyes, and your pointing fingers if you see something, but we try to make no sound at all. And the kids for 1 minute, they did pretty well. We saw a couple birds fly by, a couple turkey vultures, and a crane actually came right by after we were discussing the first minute. So that was pretty cool. But we build that. That time obviously expands. And we've gone it in years past, obviously not last year, but in years past, I've gotten up to about 15 minutes of relative silence. Now, for any child or any person, 15 minutes of relative silence is pretty impressive. But for 5-year-olds in the month of May, that's downright a miracle. So they are definitely invested in learning about birds and wanting to find birds. And the beauty of it is that they learn so much and are so excited about it, they take it into their home life and they tell their parents, and their parents are sending me pictures of them birding in their backyard, or sending me a list of the birds that they saw on their car ride to grandma's. And our list just expands and grows because of those experiences that fall outside of our actual birding time. So we do understand the flexibility of having a classroom be able to do this, that you can kind of do it how it best fits you. But seeing how the kids can find ways to do it outside of the regular school hours is a really impressive thing. They'll take pictures, they'll do videos. We use Seesaw as an interactive thing from home that we started during our virtual learning last year. So we've kept that this year, even though we've been face-to-face the whole year. And the kids have already started sending me videos about bird things they found and bird calls that they've heard and things like that. So it's really exciting. And the one part I also really like is being able to take the kids out at different points of the day for different amounts of times in different locations, and just kind of noticing what they observe. You know, I'll maybe try to give them a little bit of guidance, guiding questions and things along the way, but really looking what can they come up with prediction wise if I tell them where we're going to go, and we look at the weather and they remember, oh, the last overcast day, this is what happened, or the last time we went in the woods, this is what we saw, or today it's really hot, I wonder what that will do. To have them have those discussions, that's just as valuable, if not more valuable, than actually seeing the birds. It's just them being able to figure out, well, what is the best time to find them, and them making those predictions. And of course, always a joy is we might be in the middle of math or the middle of writing time or the middle of something more traditional in the classroom, and they'll see our resident sandhill crane walk, or they'll see a turkey vulture, or they'll see something, or they hear something, and they just flock to the window. And of course, whatever we're doing, it takes a backseat to the birds because we've got to go figure it out. The one highlight, which I wish the kids were for, is I was telling my custodian about this because he was always enthralled with it. Like, what in the world are you doing with the kids? And he helps me take stuff to the trail. I was here one morning around 6:45 earlier than the kids got here, and he runs to my room. He's just like, grab your iPad and follow me. When the custodian tells you to do that, you do that. That's for sure. And so I'm following the custodian down, and we get close to the outside door, and he gives me the whole shush symbol, and he starts creeping like we're like solving a mystery or something. We open up the door, and there's a bald eagle in the tree right up there. And we don't live in the most rural part of town. So seeing this eagle was really awesome. And we watched it for 30 seconds, was able to grab a video clip of it. I shared that with my kids. And oh my gosh, did we watch that 30-second clip for the rest of the year 2,863 times. If it was a viral video, it would have broken all records because those kids just wanted to see this over and over and over. And of course, they were looking for it the rest of the year. We never saw it again. But hey, there's another chance. Every day you go out there, you never know what you're going to see. So for you that are out there that are thinking about it or wanting to talk to teachers in schools about doing it, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. You can even be an idiot like me who knows nothing about birds and didn't know, they're pretty cool. I just like to go outside with kids and see what happens. And now I'm sitting there busting out purple finches and stuff that my wife, who's a bird nerd, is like, wow, you know your stuff now. I'm like, I'm getting much better at it than I was, but I'm learning just as much of the kids, and I'm having so much fun having this experience as well. So I highly, highly recommend it, and look forward to seeing how many birds you come up with, but hopefully we'll beat you because my kids are very competitive this year. I think I've talked a mile a minute, but I'm just trying to avoid a tornado here, but I think that's my last slide. If it's not, I apologize. Yep, they're okay, it's not. But like I said, I think I talked a little bit about this. Yeah, we have opportunities where we go out as a class and do it together. Sometimes kids will have a outdoor station responsibility of sitting at one of our bird benches, where we did get some binoculars from the National Resources Foundation, Natural Resources Foundation. The kids use those, and they use those to observe nesting boxes and other birds like that. And we add anything we find. We add them to our big long class list that will start growing in April 15th, but we'll be doing some practices before then. And it's just fun to really dig into it and see what the kids come up with. And I'm just really happy to be out birding again with the kids in person, and excited to see what the kids can come up with this year. And I do have that birding sheet that I mentioned. If anybody wants it, I can drop my email in the chat, and feel free to email me and I can attach it. It's just a Word document, so it's nothing fancy, but it's easier than creating one on your own. And there's my email. I think that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you so much, you three. That was absolutely wonderful. So incredibly informative. So many rich resources. So thank you.